Habs lunch, Campbell versus Gallo here on TSN 690. Welcome back. Our hot topic today, and we'll open up the phone lines in 10 minutes. How did you feel when the Montreal Canadiens drafted David Reinbacher? And how do you feel today? Campbell, personally, I didn't like the pick when they made it, and I feel worse today than I did when they made the pick. That's with hindsight. When the Canadiens selected David Reinbacher, I was baffled that they did not select Ryan Leonard. I've been asked about other players from that draft class, and some of them, although I think were better prospects than David Reinbacher, I understand the Montreal Canadiens, from a team-building standpoint, not wanting those players. And I'll give you a couple of examples. In that draft, if we put Leonard aside, I was pretty vocal as well that I didn't want the Canadiens to select Matvei Michkov because there was just too much noise in that situation. And I know a lot of fans that dislike Reinbacher, which I don't, by the way. A lot of fans that dislike Reinbacher dislike him because they really wanted Matvei Michkov. They saw that as a game-breaking talent, a game-breaking star.
One or the other, right?
Yeah.
If I don't get what I want, I don't like the other thing.
But I understand passing on Michkov. I don't understand passing on Ryan Leonard. The other guys I really liked in that draft were Benson and Sandin Pellikka. I really liked those two players at that draft, and I had them both much higher than they ended up being drafted. Benson went 13 to Buffalo, and Pellikka went 17 to Detroit. And Campbell, again, this is not hindsight being 20/20. You worked with me. I told you about these players during those drafts. But Benson is 5'10". He's probably not even 5'10", but he's listed at 5'10", $170.
It's not very big.
When you have a team that already features a Cole Caulfield, I get passing on Benson, even if he's the superior talent. You can't have too many players that are the same. And Axel Sandin Pellikka is also 5'10", maybe a little thicker than Benson, but he's also very small. And when you have Elaine Hudson, even though Pellikka's a right shot, I understood not taking him. Because from a team-building standpoint, these are first-round picks. These guys are going to factor into the equation. It makes sense. I liked those two players, though. I even liked Oliver Bonk, who we saw yesterday. A little bit bigger, also right-hand shot defenseman, but not with a 5th overall pick. For me, the guy was really Ryan Leonard. And there's still going to be a lot to be said about that draft class. But I don't hold where David Reinbacher was drafted against him. All it does, however, is place certain expectations around the player.
Yeah, the 5th overall, that comes with a pedigree, with expectation.
You don't draft a player 5th overall in hopes that he can fill the 5-6 spots in your defensive blue line. The knee injury set him back, there's no question. And a year in the American Hockey League will be beneficial, I'm sure of it. And I'm not even saying he'll never play games in the NHL. He's going to get an opportunity. He was a top 10 pick. I'm just not that high on the player. And it's not about, one game last night. The one game last night just reinforced what I've seen since Reinbacher was drafted by the Montreal Canadiens. I'm not wowed considering he was a 5th overall selection, and I don't think he excels at any one thing. Last night's game, if we want to look at it and evaluate it, the game seemed to be going lightning fast for him.
Mm-hmm.
He was not able to process nearly as quickly as need be. And that was an NHL game featuring a lot of American Hockey League players at the other end. the game was going too fast for David Reinbacher. He also made mistakes with the puck, made mistakes without the puck. And I'm not even going to isolate the one play with Anthony Richard where I don't even think he was completely to blame on that one. And Campbell, I'm always hesitant to share these opinions for a couple of reasons. Number one, when you talk about somebody that the fans really want and need to be good, in a bad light, they take it personally. I don't want you to take what I saw out of Reinbacher and my evaluations personally. That's not what I want whatsoever. Try to be objective about it. That's where I'm at. I'm trying to look at what I see and forecast ahead. That's the number one reason why I'm always hesitant. The number two reason I'm hesitant, and I can take it on the chin, but if you give a forceful opinion like this, and you're wrong, people come up with the receipts. And they throw it in your face, and they want to tell you how wrong you were. Wherein at the same time, if I'm right, it'll be forgotten, and I'll be given no credit. Right? So it's kind of like a lose-lose situation.
You don't need the credit, Gallo.
I'm just saying
you don't need the pat on the back.
I don't need the pat on the back. All I'm saying is that if I'm wrong, it'll be thrown in my face. And if I'm right, it'll never be talked about again. That's all I'm saying as far as my hesitancy to give a firm opinion like this. And the third thing is the worst of the three for me when giving a strong opinion on a player like David Reinbacher. The third reason why I don't like saying these things out loud, kind of have to, have a microphone in front of my face 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, not including pre- and post-game shows. It puts me in a situation where because I've given this opinion, I want to root for the player to fail so I could tell everybody that I was right. I don't want to do that. I hope Reinbacher pans out. I hope I'm wrong. I hope people come with the receipts. I don't want to be forced into a spot where I'm cheering against a young player because I said that the young player wasn't going to pan out. I don't want to do that. But with how vocal people are when you're wrong, it almost forces me into that mindset. And I'm going to try to avoid it at all costs. But those are the three reasons why, Campbell, I don't like talking badly about top prospects like this. But they don't all pan out. They don't all make it. Not all number 5 overall picks play regularly in the NHL. They're not all slam dunks. And just because management, who you trust, made the decision to draft him, it doesn't mean they were right. It doesn't mean they don't sometimes get it wrong. I still like the management of the Canadiens. I think they're doing a great job. I think the rebuild is trending in the right way. It's not a knock on Kent Hughes, Jeff Gordon, the scouts. All it is sometimes either you fall in love with a player, you put too much emphasis on one thing, you're deterred by another player for whatever reason, whatever bias you might have, and then a mistake is made. And I think ultimately, using a failed season, a season when you're at the bottom of the standings, a season when fans were not going to the building as much as they should have been because all the team was doing is losing, and losing some more, and the result of all those losses, and a season that was pointless as far as the standings, is David Reinbacher. I think ultimately that is going to be a fail.
All right, so there's a lot to unpack there. To the question.
Sorry, I went on a bit of a monologue when we do a show together. I'm sorry about that, but Campbell, I'm passionate.
It's almost 9 minutes, and maybe I'll have a minute here to say
at least I'm capable of going on a 9-minute rant like that.
But there's a lot to unpack there to what you said. And look, the question: how did you feel when he was drafted? How did you feel when about him now? I am probably the most patient person when it comes to prospects. I am very patient when it comes to goaltenders. I'm extremely patient when it comes to the defensemen. But when he was drafted, I didn't know him. My simple answer of how did you feel when the Canadiens drafted him was, I don't know. Right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I know I work with you, who you have your background. I lean on you on the draft. You're the head scout here at TSN 690, so I get information from you, but I like to make my own opinions when I see them. And a lot of times, I've been asked about Zachary Bolduc. I've seen him play with the Blues, but I can't wait to watch him with my own eyes on a night in, night out basis. The problem with David Reinbacher is since he's been drafted, watching him on a night in and night out basis hasn't been easy. One, he was in Europe. Then he showed up. Then he got hurt. So we're talking about a handful of games. So one, I'm going to put my hand up and say I'm still going to be patient on the second question of how do you even feel now? Every time I've seen him, I've called games, play-by-play voice of the Laval Rocket. There were many nights he was the best player on the ice in the AHL. The question I asked heading into training camp, is he NHL ready? I watched one preseason game. My easy answer is no. But I want to see more. I am not cutting ties. I am not thinking that the Canadiens should have done this at the draft. I'm not getting ready with your 9-minute preamble of saying, I'm ready to tell everybody I told you so. That's kind of how I felt that you were talking there. I'm just letting everybody know when it doesn't work out, I told you so, because the Canadiens should have done this. And that's what happens at number 5. When you said this perfectly. When the Canadiens lose an entire season and they get the first overall pick, Slafkovsky. You get a 5th overall pick, the Reinbacher. You could go back in time to the Carey Price 5th overall pick. I know that was coming out of the lockout, etc. When you have a top pick, Galchenyuk, we could go down the path, Kotkaniemi. You want to make sure you get a dynamic player that's game-changing. That's kind of how you feel. Demidov felt like that last year when the Canadiens got him. They were like, oh my God, we got a dynamic game-changing player in the top 10. Because those players are the hardest players to get. David Reinbacher feels like a defenseman that you could have picked up at the 20th pick. And I think that's where Habs fans like, why'd you pick him there? Because what does he do great? You ask that question. What does he do great? When I watch him in the level, I told you, I've watched a lot of him in North America live a lot. And I'm watching him, I'm like, he skates well, he hits well, he's physical, passes well, he's got a bomb of a shot. All these things I've fallen in love. Not seen in the NHL because he hasn't played in the NHL. And you could do all those things incredibly well in the AHL and never make it to the NHL. It's one of the reasons why the Canadiens have traded away Logan Mailloux. He was one of the best skaters physically. He was mean. He had a crazy shot, power play guy, everything you want in a defensive prospect. Never made the Canadiens on a long-term basis. So, yes, I understand as time goes, your pedigree descends and you go, I don't feel the same. So when asking how did you feel on the day of the draft and how do you feel today, most people will say he's a 5th overall pick and he let up a breakaway last night. I don't like him. But if you look at the grand scheme of things, I am putting my hand up on pure patience on this player. I want to see him this season look like he doesn't belong in the AHL. I want to see him be able to play games in the NHL and belong. Is he going to be a dominant force? I can't predict that. But I think that there's a lot to unpack there with David Reinbacher. How did you feel now? How do you feel then? That's a good question because I think a lot of people have changed. And probably very unfair to him because you didn't watch him in Europe and then you didn't watch him last year because he was hurt. So you're pretty much at status quo with 25 AHL games to judge him on and one preseason game this year.